What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the RTBG show. My name is Jason Lee, and I am your host for this podcast. And in this podcast, we talk about productivity, creativity, and lifestyle. So, you want to learn more about that, consider subscribing so you don't miss another episode. All right, so today's episode is going to be a little different. Not really, but for me personally, it's going to be a little different, mainly because this episode is another unscripted episode. So if you guys haven't heard an unscripted episode before, it's usually very messy, and I don't really put a lot of thought beforehand. I don't put a lot of work before filming these episodes. And if you're watching, as you can see the new setup. You can see the new microphone that I added to the setup, and it's amazing. I love this microphone. Not only do I use this for this podcast, but I probably will use it for other forms of media, like voiceover for videos and also Zoom calls for my school as well. And talking about school today, that's what I will be talking about, and what I think about school, because I feel like this is the topic that I avoid the most, or like the one topic that I don't like talking about it publicly, mainly because there's a lot of controversy about it, and I'm a little still unsure about my stance on school. But I feel like I should talk about it anyways, just because I want to be as transparent, and I want to let you guys know what I think as much as I can. I also have a very unique school experience when it comes to how I was treated and how I adapted to the learning environment and everything. And I feel like you guys could learn or benefit a little bit from this. So if you want to listen to that, you want to listen to my story and what I think about school, stick around. And today, it's my first day of school. I don't know when you guys can be watching or listening to this, but today is a Monday and we start school. Even though it's only like 1 hour, it's very difficult. And as much as I like a little about school here, but I really do not like school. I found the truth about the school system a couple years ago, and I still don't like it. But what I do empathize for is the teachers, the teachers who are not capable, or the teachers who are or don't know a lot about how to do classes online. I really feel bad for those teachers because they don't know how to work these, and these takes a lot of time. And if you don't, and since they didn't grow up in the technological world as my generation did, I feel like they have a lot of problems just trying to adapt to the new situation. And I feel like the best thing that any of students can do, if you're a student and you have a Zoom class, please be patient with your professor or teacher, because if they're struggling, most likely is that because they're not trying to waste your time, is that they're still trying every single day to adapt to the new situation. And I also will be talking about what I think about teachers later on, because that's a little different when it comes to the difference between school and teachers. But okay. All right, so maybe I should start with a story first. All right, so the story goes, I've been to multiple schools, right? Probably more than any of the kids that I know have been, because I've been to schools in Korea, I've been to school in Vietnam, and I've been to school here in America. And all three of those places have different impacts on me, from little to a whole lot of impact on me. But I feel like the schools in Korea, they're very different. They're strict. They're okay. But I only went there for, I think, only up to kindergarten, I guess. I don't remember exactly, but that's what I've been told. And I definitely do remember like the transition that I had to make from learning in Korea to learning in Vietnam. In Vietnam, there is a lot of discipline. There's a lot of things, even though I was just in elementary, there was a lot of things that was expected of us. In elementary, I remember like first or second grade, I used to get pulled out of class because I didn't have a nice handwriting. I didn't know Vietnamese that well, because I was just barely speaking it, and I didn't know how to write well. So I used to get pulled out of class specifically for that reason, and to be tutored personally by other teachers so that I can write better and learn better. And the learning curve that I had to do, the learning curve that I had to adapt to was very harsh, and I feel like it taught me to be disciplined. It taught me that a lot of things in life is going to be this way. A lot of things in life, it's not going to be fair. And even though like I didn't truly understand that, I didn't truly realize that at that moment, the work that I had to put in was still was a lot. And eventually I had one of the best handwriting in schools, but it doesn't matter because I don't use it now, and my handwriting is pretty crap compared to what it was before. But I remember, so I went to a Vietnamese elementary school for 5 years. I mean, the first 2 years was in a different city, and the 3 years later was also in a different city. And I also remember the amount of tutoring that I had to get every single week was way more than I've ever gotten in America. But in Vietnam, there's a lot of rules. We had to wear uniform. There's a lot of things that was expected of us. And I guess I didn't hate school back then, but I also did not love it. I only love it because of the friends and the amount of social things that I get to do. But looking back now, I feel like school in Vietnam really taught me how to be disciplined and really taught me how to treat other people nicely. Because you would not get away with treating somebody badly in Vietnamese school. Even the teachers bully you. So I feel like if you misbehave or you're behaving in some ways or like you try to hurt somebody else, you're really not going to get away with it. And it taught me how to, respect, work and how to have discipline within my work. Because most of the time in school, I was always that one kid that was behind when in the beginning of the year. It's usually the trend now, and I'm used to it, mainly because it's been 11 years since I've been in school. But Vietnamese school definitely taught me a lot. And I didn't really hate school until I was in high school year. But before that, let's talk about middle school. I feel like middle school for a lot of people, and including myself, was the most transitional or the most life-changing kind of moments in their life. But for me, it was very special because in middle school was the first time I ever learned English. A lot of you guys might be surprised that I came here at the beginning of middle school, but I did. And for the duration of 6th grade, I was dedicating myself to learning English as much as possible and develop the accent that I have today. But the amount of, I guess for the first time, I really didn't have struggle. I guess for the first time, I really did not struggle with learning something. Ironically, but the struggles of learning English didn't really come until 7th and 8th grade, where I have a group of friends. They were pretty much the academically elite of the school. I have no idea how I made it to the friend group, but when I made it, I feel like my English abilities and my academic abilities was really behind. So I pushed myself to learn more and to use their vocabulary, to learn more stuff about English, to learn the right way. And I also was attending advanced classes in middle school. If you guys know about advanced classes, those classes were dedicated for the kids who want to learn more, or for the advanced kids. It's like how AP in high school is. In middle school, I was learning a lot, and I feel like that's where I learned more discipline. I learned way more stuff about school. Then I learned way more about life than I ever did. In middle school, there was a lot of things that happened. So there was a lot of things that I learned by doing a lot of wrong things. But the hate for school didn't really come until the beginning of high school. And I didn't really think about it until the beginning of this quarantine, right? And the reason I have such a problem with school is that I feel like there is, if you really think about it, school puts you in neat rows, right? Put you in rows of students and put you in a group and have a teacher who leads you, who teaches you what to do. And you can only talk when you raise your hand. It's very limited in some ways. But a lot of people do is that they justify it, be like, oh, but that's how school's supposed to be, right? That's how children learn. Well, I feel like school limits the creativity of kids, and I felt like I could have been so much better, or I could have learned so much more things, has it not been for school to limit my creativity. And And also the problem that I have with school is that a lot of the teachers and a lot of the system is very conservative. They're not really open to new ideas, or they're not really open to new ways of learning that scientists themselves have proven to be better, right? They don't teach us, school doesn't really teach you how to study, they only make you study. It's not part of the curriculum to teach you how to study. We all have to really figure it out ourselves, even though, yes, I agree with the fact that all of us have different ways of studying, all of us have different ways of learning, but in the end, they should at least teach us how to learn and how our brains work, how our brain absorbs information. I feel like I've never learned it in science class. And at the beginning of quarantine, I've also thought about what I have used in terms of the information that I learned for the past 11 years, right? I do not remember the Pythagorean theorem to be useful in any day cases at all. Like, everything that I have here, everything that I learned, like video editing and how to manage my time, I learned everything on YouTube. I feel like YouTube is like the best class ever. And also, school forces us to learn things that we don't really love, right? We don't have a choice to either take English or not. We don't have a choice to take history or not. We don't have a choice to take science or not. I would be 100% okay with the school system if they offer education, not forcing education. I feel like education should be a choice, and it also should be free. But we'll talk about college later, but that's not the point of today's episode. But school, a lot of the time, okay, I'll give you one example where this is kind of like the pulling point of why I absolutely hate high school. I really didn't hate English class until last year, right? Where I had a teacher where she has very conservative views. And even though sure, I'm not the type of person where I would judge or I would hurt somebody else because they have a different viewpoint on life than me. But what she does is she tries to enforce that conservative viewpoint on the students that she teaches. And she doesn't care whether or not that's going to affect their creativity or that's going to affect their abilities academically or even physically. And what I really hated about that class is because eventually I learned that we're just reading stories and analyzing literature, right? And sure, guys, don't get me wrong, I don't hate literature, and I really love stories, but I feel like it should be a choice where for people to, they should be able to have access to all kind of literature on the planet, but I also don't think that they should be enforced the way that the school system does, right? In most high school, I think English is required for all 4 years. And that's the case at my high school. And for every year, I feel like after reading a book, I hate reading more and more. This is such a big lie that not only I enforce it on myself because of school, but I think a lot of kids hate reading is because of English class. But over quarantine, I've picked up like a lot of books. Actually, let me show you one. For the listeners, I know you can't see this, but this is the 7 Habits of Highly Effective Teens. I picked this up in Vietnam, ironically. I saw it in a bookstore and I was like, okay, let me spend maybe like $15 in $15 US instead of just trying to spend it on anything else. But my point is that after reading this book, I didn't know how much I love reading about self-development, and that's how I really got started in like thinking about all these stuff right here. If it had not been me going out of my way to buy this book, I would have hated reading for the rest of my life probably. And I feel like school, and the other problem that I have with school is because of its decision and how it treats failure, right? If you get an F in a class, you're basically like the worst person in class, and nobody wants that. Well, that's the problem. Nobody wants to fail. If that kind of mentality is going to keep you for the rest of your life, you're never going to really succeed in anything if you're only trying to win, right? If an A is all you want, you're never really going to see what you did wrong. And for me, I failed at so many things within school that I really stopped caring about it. And that's how I learned to value a lot of the things that I have, is because I never because in school usually I would always have a disadvantage when it comes to learning. Not only there's a language barrier, but there's also a learning curve that I have to do every single time I've learned something new. I have no idea why, but I just have this kind of if somebody else, like I have a friend, his name is Christian. I absolutely love this guy. He's my best friend, but he has this ability. He's so smart, and I've seen other kids that do this too, but he can just learn anything so quickly, where I have to pour in hours before I can even understand the concept itself. I understood that I had this kind of disability, or I had this kind of learning curve that was more than anybody else, that I had to put in more work. It's because I constantly failing that I understood what I had to do, right? What the school does is only celebrates the people who are succeeding, and never really helps understand the fact that failing isn't okay. Failing is okay, and that it is part of life. That's really the only problem that I have with school. But other than that, I absolutely love school. I love the friends that it gives me. I love the sports programs, and yeah, school, I feel like it's good up to maybe like middle school, like beginning of high school. But after that, I feel like a lot of kids have already learned most of the life lessons and ready to go. Like even though this is just like the beginning of my senior year, I'm pretty much ready to graduate. Like I feel like I don't need to learn anything anymore, but I don't know, I could be wrong. But I'm still constantly learning about self-development. I'm still buying more books, the 7 Habits of Highly Effective Teens. I'm only gonna keep learning about the stuff that I love. All right, I'm sorry that you guys have to listen to that rant, and I hope you guys do enjoy the episode and learn a little something about the school system itself. All right, if you guys want me to talk more about this subject, make sure you don't forget to DM me on Instagram. It is at Lee JASONN _ DM me there. I will happily to respond. If you guys just go ahead and tell me that you guys are from the Race Good Show, I will be more happy to reply. And thank you so much, guys, for listening to this podcast, and I will see you on the next episode. Peace.